The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great show this week. Joining me on the Coach's Corner panel is John Hughes and Jim Endicott. A little bit later, I'm going to be joined by golf fitness professional Bob Forman, and he's here to talk about building power in your swing. Then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by my featured guest of the evening, Elsbeth Hurry, who is the co-founder and CEO of Zigit, which is a great app, and we'll talk to you more about that a little bit later on in the broadcast. Don't forget to tune in every week on our YouTube channel, the iGolf Sports YouTube channel, where you can see all of the latest broadcasts, both for Golf Talk Live and also the Women of Golf, which airs every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern. You can check them out on the iGolf Sports YouTube channel. Also, check out some of the short videos and some of the featured interviews that have been posted up there already. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great information, and a lot of great guests, so hope you'll tune in. Also, Golf Tips Magazine has gone to a new format, completely online and completely all digital. The publication has now moved to a premium website. So if you go to golftipsmag.com, there's a lot of information there to talk about how you can sign up and become a premium member. And there's 3 levels of premium, silver, gold, and platinum. And so far, a lot of people are signing up for the platinum. It's a great deal. Check out the benefits there. But go to golftipsmag.com and check out some of the new features and some of the great posts that have already been put up through on the website. But glad you could join me tonight. And I'm going to introduce the guys here. We're going to get into our discussion on Coach's Corner. So first up is John Hughes. He's a PGA Master Professional. He's also the honorary president of the North Florida PGA section and the 2013 PGA of America's Professional Development Award recipient. He's also the 2023 North Florida PGA Teacher and Coach of the Year, and is a senior contributing editor and a Golf Tips Magazine Top 25 instructor. Also on the panel tonight is Jim Endicott. He's currently a PGA Education faculty member and a PGA specializing professional in both teaching and coaching. He's a former Golf Digest School's general manager and a 7-time PGA Award winner, including the 2022 North Florida PGA Section Patriot Award and 2 North Florida PGA Youth Development Awards. And he's also a contributing editor and top 25 instructor with Golf Tips Magazine. So guys, welcome to Coach's Corner tonight. Masters night, I guess the eve of the first day on the Masters. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. It's great to be here. Great to be here with you, John.
I appreciate it.
Jim. Always good to see you.
I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight. And just on a quick note, Jim, I think you were just giving us a short little update on what's happening on the Masters. I think you said Justin Rose is in the lead at 7 under?
Yeah, Justin Rose, he was 7 under. Scotty's behind him at -4. And it looks like it's going to be a great field. There's a very large number at -1. So everybody's within reach.
Everybody's knocking on the door. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. I'm going to try to catch as much of it as I can. I know I've got a lot of things to do, as I'm sure you guys do, but always try to check out here and there whenever I can to see what's happening at Augusta National. So, obviously, that'll be a great event, first major of the season. All right, so my question to you guys is, and this is really to all of our viewers out there and listeners to this podcast, are you mentally prepared? And that's a question. It's kind of one of those questions that, what are we prepared for? And I'm going to give you that here in just a second. So I was thinking, because of the Masters, most of these guys that are playing out there right now, we know that they can hit a good ball. We know that they're pretty consistent with their play. So really it comes into the mind game and also emotions and things like that. I know we've talked about that here before many times. but I've got some specific questions here that are going to dial in certain areas that I want to cover. And John, I'm going to talk to you first. And the first one is, how do we turn our obstacles into challenges?
I'm glad you specified what we're mentally ready for, so I knew how to answer the question. Jim, always good to see you.
Yeah.
Miss you here in North Florida. Obstacles and challenges. It's a mindset. It's literally a flip of a coin. Obstacles tend to be excuses. Challenges tend to be, what can I prove? What can I do? And it's very simple in that manner. When you can look at an obstacle or even a distraction and basically dissect it and figure out, why is it an obstacle? Is it a visual? Is it an auditory? Is it a emotional? What is that obstacle? Can you label it in such a colorful way so you better understand it? And once you better understand it, related to who you are, not as a golfer, just who you are as a person, and then be able to say, you know what, I deal with these obstacles off the golf course in this manner. Why would you not use something that you're very familiar with and very successful with on the golf course? The difference is that ball's laying there, sort of looking at you, trying to get rid of the obstacle and present the challenge.
Right.
From the opposite, once you've figured out, okay, I've labeled this obstacle, the question being, how do you make it a challenge? Think of it as a problem. Think of it as, here's what problem-solving methodology do I want to go through with this particular shot, with this particular situation? What does it call for? And are you inventorying your skills, not just what's in your bag, but what you have today? Not yesterday, not tomorrow. What do I have today? And that's part of the challenge, is being able to understand who you are right now and what can you do with this problem. And then from there, you've probably used problem-solving methodologies in other parts of your life. They can be applied on the golf course too. As you're solving this problem, you're defining the challenge. You're defining what the mission is. Ultimately, what your brain sees is point A to point B, the golf ball from where it lies to where you want it to be. But there could be physical obstacles, meaning trees, whatever it is. Those are what they are. I think what you're really talking about is the obstacles within us, the obstacles that keep us from being able to see that challenge. And again, when you dissect it, put labels on it, and then take your own inventory, you can start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, getting to see where that B is and how you're going to get the ball there. From that point, once you recognize it's a challenge, you've got to go all in with blinders so you can distract anything else that's going to come about as you're trying to execute the shot. And that's where most amateurs have the issue. They can go through the problem solving, create the challenge, but will they stand over that ball and be committed? And that's what a challenge takes, is a full commitment. And that's all golf asks you to do in a very short period of time, to be able to not only navigate your obstacles, but be able to successfully take on the challenges and have some type of positive come through it. So you know, okay, next, here's my next shot. But you've got to stay there to understand what that obstacle is, how to define it, how to put it into a challenge, and then be able to just execute.
You know,
I went everywhere with that, but it's not as easy, it's not as clear cut as most people think, and it's different for everybody, and I tried to put that in there.
Yeah, and a lot of obstacles, you know, people think of just what's on the golf course or what's an exterior, but yeah, there's a lot of internal dialogue that goes on, and that throws up roadblocks for people and creates a lot of you know, its own challenges, never mind what you're facing with on the golf course. So yeah, you've got to really manage yourself internally as well as externally in order to be successful out in the golf course. Jim, there's certain things that you can and cannot control And I think it's important that you emphasize what you can control and not what you can't control. So maybe you could sort of unpack that a little bit, talk about that, and how do we sort of emphasize what we can control? In other words, focus more on what we can control, and then what do we do to deal with the things that we can't control? Do we put them aside, or how do we handle those?
That's a great question. The idea of what we can control and what we can't control, I kind of look at it in terms of when I'm in a situation, I have to go through a process. I have to go through a process of this is where I'm at and this is where I'm trying to go and this is how I'm going to negotiate what's between me and the end result. And I can control those decisions. I can control what I'm going to do. But I can't control is where the ball is sitting. I can't control what I have to navigate in front of me. I can control how I might navigate it, but I can't control the wind. I can't control how the ball is going to land on the green and that sort of thing. And so what I have to do is look at the processes versus the action. And when I say that, we're going to look at where's the ball sitting? What's the lie dictate and tell me that I am able to do? Then I have to make a decision and say, I'm going to make my ball go in this manner. I'm going to start it to the right and I'm going to curve around this tree. Those are things I can control how I can go about doing that. But that comes through what I call the mental process of decision making. How far am I? What's the lie? What's the wind? What's the elevation? I have to negotiate that, as John was talking about. I have to create that as the challenge. Or I like to also look at it as the opportunity. I have an opportunity to move my ball from here to there. Now, once I have struck it, it's out of my control. And wherever that ball ends up, I have to now go to it and say, okay, here's where it is. Here's where I'm going. What does the lie tell me I'm able to do? Can I hit it high? Can I hit it low? If I can only hit it low from the situation and I have to go over a bunker, I can't control that situation. I have to now decide I'm not going over it. That wins. I'm going to go around it. And so the controllables are our process. The uncontrollables are what happens after the process. After I've struck it, it's out there. It's going to do what it's going to do. I have to then go to it and say, okay, I have this situation. I have that to navigate. What can I do to control it, to navigate it to that point? And then do it. And then go react to it again. And we just navigate our way around the golf course. Golf is a game of hit my golf ball at a target a certain distance. That comes from navigating all the obstacles, as John was talking about, from where it's sitting to where I'm going. And then pull the trigger and do it.
Yeah. Some great analogy. And you know, it just goes to how, I guess, easy it is for people to get themselves in and this is going to lead to what I want you to talk about now, is to a certain level of anxiety, because they don't look at things in as clear of a picture as what you both have just pointed out. They tend to focus so much on the process and worry about what the outcome may or may not be, where in some cases they may not have control of that outcome. So they have to look at, okay, how can I best tackle this particular scenario? What are the odds? And we've talked about this, Jim, you've mentioned it many times, as John has, is what's the percentage of success or likelihood of success that I'm going to be able to pull this shot off? If I'm a 25 handicapper and less than 30% of the time or 40% of the time I can't pull this shot off, then I need to look at other options. And unfortunately, most people don't. They see what they see on TV and they say, well, I can do that, or I'm going to give that a try. And then they're in all kinds of trouble. So this raises, John, the level of anxiety. So how can we use anxiety as a cue? So if we're experiencing anxiety, that's really a trigger that's telling us, okay, I'm feeling anxious maybe about that shot. I'm feeling anxious about this particular hole. How can we then take that anxiety, recognize it as a cue that, hey, we're a little bit nervous or stressed out right now, and then how can we sort of turn the tide and shift things around?
So I'm an amateur psychologist at best. The three of us are. But anxiety in golf, you said it, but I'm going to reverse it.
Sure.
Are they process thinking only because they're emotionally attached to what they think the ball should be doing? They're not necessarily process, they're result oriented, and it's the lack of knowledge or the lack of ability to understand what that it's not the result as far as the ball flying there or rolling there or curving there. It's, wow, I'm here and that's there and I'm supposed to be doing this, and that's the anxiety. And all of a sudden brain starts working faster, time doesn't stand still, it warp speeds, and you just get out of sorts, you get out of organized thoughts that are normally in this nice little process. That's really the key. I don't think people get into the process and then get anxious about the result. Most amateurs are not skilled enough to even know how to get the result.
Right.
And because of that, it works bad. Now all of a sudden, I don't know. And that right there is going to trigger the anxiety.
Yeah.
It's okay that you don't know. It's okay that you may not have these particular skills to pull it off like the people that we admire on TV. You said it best. These people are on. We're seeing the 12 to 17 best players for that day on the TV. You are not one of those people.
Right.
You don't have those skills, but yet the anxiety of saying, well, I should be able to do that. No, you shouldn't. Very quickly, no, you shouldn't. Do you practice that much? Are you in the gym that much?
Right.
Are you going through a process to level your anxiety, to actually twist it back into positive energy, to go, you know what? I don't have to hit it high. It doesn't have to curve this way. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even have to get there. Based on my skills, maybe it's bumping it out so I have a better shot and taking a little bit of medicine. That anxiety is what leads to the doubles, the triples, the others, because you're trying to pull off the hero shot with having no clue nor the skills to pull it off. It's until you decide what your anxiety is really saying. What your anxiety is really saying is, I may not be able to do that, which goes back to what you said. It's about percentages. This percentage over to the left side, getting away from the tree, putting it back into play, advancing it, gives me a better percentage of lowering the score.
Yeah.
And I think once amateurs wrap their arms around that, there's a maturity level that kicks in from a golf IQ standpoint of view. Jim and I have had this discussion with junior tournament players. It's not until they figure these things out that they become better. And it has nothing to do with skill. It has everything to do with what can I do today? And okay, my anxiety's got me, but I'm not going to let it totally control me. That is one thing you do have control over, how you react to your anxiety. And if you just react and just go about your business flailing shots everywhere, well, that's your fault. That was your decision. Let's grab that anxiety, look at the energy to it, and what is it telling you? And if you're listening to that, the pathway to get where you need to go becomes more evident or clear, and all of a sudden things settle down. The time doesn't go in warp speed in.
Yeah, and you really have to put thought into how you're going to move things forward, and it doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time. Obviously, practice and experience comes into play at some point. Obviously, as junior golfers, as they start to develop and hone their skills, not just their physical skills, but their mental skills, they start to learn exactly some of the things that you're talking about. And unfortunately, there's a segment, and a very large segment, unfortunately, of many amateurs out there that have not really honed some of these skills. They're so, bent on trying to hit the ball a certain way or trying to get their swing looking such a way that they're not really focusing on the things that are going to help them become a better player. And they get caught in this. It's like a loop. It's in a trap. And the frustration level, the anxiety levels just keep going up. And then either one of two things happen. Either they try something completely out of the box, which can ultimately maybe potentially make it worse, or they just give up out of frustration. So sometimes developing these skills, even late in life, late in your golfing career, if you will, is better than not. And sometimes you have to take your medicine and just deal with, okay, that was a bad shot. That was a bad hole. Let's leave that behind. Let's not ramp up the anxiety, and let's focus on the next shot and see if we can work through that process a little bit easier. But great unpacking of that one. Thank you, John. Jim, I think a lot of people use golf imagery as part of their practice. We're visualizing what that first hole is going to be like. And I think that's something that certainly helps a lot of people. But I'm going to give you actually a different question, but I want you to maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think they can kind of work hand in hand. And that is creating an attitude for competition. And obviously, if you're going to be playing, whether it's in your club championship or you're playing in a junior event or what have you, when you're practicing, you're not just out there beating balls, as we've talked about many times. You're actually visualizing what it is you're about to do, whether it's to play in the tournament next week, or it's maybe to play in that event today, play in the Masters even. So you're developing an imagery, if you will, as part of your practice, but you're also trying to help get yourself into an attitude for competition. So how do we do that? How do we get our mindset in such a way that we're getting it ramped up and ready to play in a competitive round?
I'll start off with what you just talked about on the imagery idea, and I think it ties back to what John was talking about the anxiety, in that we all too often see our players start off with the picture of what they want to do. And they've taken that picture based on where they want to go or the result they would like to have. However, if the situation, the skill set, the lie, the abilities don't match that image, we get that anxiety that John was talking about.
Yep.
And I think it comes back to what you're saying here in preparing ourselves for competition. We have to understand how we go about our competitive nature. Are we one who says I'm risk at all costs? Or am I one who is one to navigate myself around the golf course with the idea, and I like to look at golf in general as our objective is to hit our golf ball from where we are to a better place than we are, giving us, as John was saying, a good chance to hit a good one on the next one.
Yep.
And so preparing for a competition, I, one, have to prepare my skill set. Am I able to hit the shots I want to be able to hit? Second, I need to understand the golf course and how I'm going to navigate that ability around that golf course. And that comes in with everybody, meaning if an accomplished single-digit handicap is going to navigate the golf course differently than someone who maybe is a 15 or 20 handicap playing in their flight of the club championship. And so we have to look at our imagery to be sure that the image, the picture of what I want to do, isn't a picture based on ego, and I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
But is it an image that fits what I'm able to do? And now I map the strategy on the golf course. And if it's my club championship, I've played that golf course a number of times, a lot of times. And so I know that I can play this hole this way, and that's my best way to play it. So then I take that image to my skill set and plug it into that hole. And I navigate all the holes that way. And I set out a plan. I say to myself, okay, hole number 1, 2, 3, let's say I'm a 5 handicap. And I say hole number 1, 2, and 3, those are par holes for me.
Yeah.
Hole number 4, that's a bogey hole. Hole number 5, I typically birdie that hole. And so I map a strategy accordingly. And within that, I look at it and say, if that's my bogey hole, how do I ensure that bogey is the worst I have? And potentially, if I perform and I make a putt, I make par.
Yeah.
And so I go from an imagery perspective to skill set to mapping the golf course. From an image perspective, the map of the golf course takes me back to the skill set I need to perform and work on in practice. I need to work. I think back to a story of when Corey Pavin won the U.S. Open at Shinnecock.
Yeah.
Here was a player who wasn't a very long hitter. He came out to Grand Cypress where I was practicing, and he spent 2 days, and he hit 2 days of golf shots, 100 yards and in, going to one of the longest golf courses at that time in the history of the Open. Why? I'm going to miss a lot of greens. So my strategy has to be, how do I get it to a place that my wedge works for me? So his practice fit what the map of the golf course was. The map of the golf course came from his perspective and image of what he was able to do on that golf course. So it kind of goes back and forth. Picture of where I'm going, map it, skill set, but skill set helps to create what that image and map can be.
Yeah, I remember that tournament very well. And, Corey, was definitely not a very long hitter, but he had a pretty stellar short game, as I recall. So, yeah, and it goes back to what we've said so many times is, it's great to be able to stripe one a long way down, and obviously if you're fortunate enough to get it in the middle of the fairway, that's a bonus. But the average golfer out there, if they would just focus on the 100 yards in and really get that solid, they would avoid a lot of these big numbers that we talk about so much and be able to reduce those handicaps. John, is it possible for us, with some of what we talked about here already tonight, but how do we go about warming up our sort of golf mental routine? How do we prepare ourselves mentally as we're coming in? I know Jim talked about some things and obviously imagery and so forth, but is it possible to actually warm up our golf mental routine? And if so, how do we do that?
I'm going to take this in two parts. There's a warm up prior to getting there. You've got to prepare. I call them the what ifs. And the most competitive people ever in any sport are warming up as far as embracing warming up to the most catastrophic of situations that could occur. Jim very eloquently talked about the navigation and the norm. I'm going to use this term, it's the first to my head, the normalcy of what we want our games to be. Boring golf is actually good golf. And if it's very normal, then we're good. But what if you're here? Or what if you're there? And it's whether it's Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, you name it. You name the athlete in the sport, Tom Brady. They're always practicing the what ifs. Okay, everything's supposed to go normal, but what if this happens? And what if that happens? And you've got to embrace that in a very warm way to bring your practice level up so high that no matter what you face out there, it's going to be normal because you've prepared for it. So that's half the preparation. I think really what you were trying to ask was, hey, as we're getting closer to that date, or it's the actual date, watch these guys pre-round this weekend during the Masters. Mm-hmm. When they pull the alignment sticks off the ground, that's what they're doing. They're preparing the plan that Jim had talked about on whatever hole. And it could be a nemesis hole for somebody. But it could also be, hey, let me navigate the first 2 or 3 holes. I want to get off to a level start. I don't necessarily need a rock star start, but I certainly don't need to start 4 over for 4 holes. I've shot myself in the foot. And there's a mechanical warm-up. There's a tempo warm-up. But when they pull those sticks off the ground, that's exactly what they're doing. And that's what a an average amateur should be doing. The problem is you don't get to the golf course in time. You don't get there to actually go through that. Most people don't even go through a physical warm-up.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, hey, let me envision my map for the first couple of holes, or what's my nemesis hole on this golf course. I think it's twofold. You must warm up your practice. You must bring it to a level that you would never ever conceive ever happening. Because trust me, it will.
Yeah.
You can ask any of us, it will. But if you're not prepared for it, both beforehand and then as you're playing, as you're practicing, and you'll see this every once in a while, when somebody's game is off, you'll see them hitting certain curvature shots as they take those sticks off the ground. Is it left to right? Is it right to left? Is it high? Is it low? That's the warm-up you're talking about. But they're also keeping in the back of their mind the level of preparedness prior to getting there, that this becomes much easier. And most people don't have the time to do that, and rightfully so. There's other life priorities for you to be doing. But if you can take just a small bit of that book that these guys and gals do out there and appreciate what they put into it and what you do with it off the golf course. I'm still a big believer that everybody's successful off the golf course. And if you're really successful, you've prepared for the what ifs. You've done your homework that way. What if you took just a little bit of that and applied it to your golf game?
You know, it's interesting because I can remember, you know, growing up and being in sales very early on in my career. And, you know, I remember always having to be prepared for a sales call. It wasn't even a cold call. You know, you always wanted to be prepared because there were going to be questions that you were going to be faced with. The prospect, you know, you're doing some prospecting, you're trying to develop some leads. And, you know, I remember speaking when I first started getting into teaching, and I talked with some of my earlier corporate clients. I always asked them, I said, well, when you have a meeting, whether it be with a client or one of the senior executives is calling you in and they're calling all the executives in for a meeting, you go in that meeting prepared. You don't just sort of show up, or at least you shouldn't. Otherwise, if the CEO asks you a question and you're looking like a deer with the headlights, you're going to be having a conversation with him or her after the meeting, because they're going to say, why weren't you prepared? So, and it always baffled me when I would talk to some of these executives and say, why don't you put that same energy in preparing for your golf game? You want to be a better player and you're preparing for the boardroom, but you're not preparing for the golf course. Why is that? You want to be successful in your job, but you're not being successful on the golf. And I don't mean that you have to be a 5 handicap or whatever, but you know what I'm talking about. They're not prepared for anything, and they don't understand that you got to put the same effort in. You were going to say
it doesn't take a lot. I mean, let's
No.
put it in life priority perspective. But it might take 4 minutes, the last 4 minutes of your practice.
Mm-hmm.
It may take the last, hey, let me go hit 4-foot putts before I finish practice, because that's my nemesis.
Yeah.
And what if this 4-foot putt was treacherously down a hill left to right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's better than nothing. I bet you Jim can share some stories watching the tournament series he manages about that preparation, and how at younger ages the ones that stand out are the ones who are more prepared. Wouldn't you think, Jim?
100%. They're the ones who get there an hour before, and they have their process and routine of how they're going to get prepared for that day. You know, and some are to the putting green and then to the range. Some are to the range and then to the putting green. But they have their process, and I watch it week in and week out. They do it the same. They do it the same way each time, getting themselves prepared for the boardroom, if you will. And their boardroom has to be 18 holes on grass.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's really, you know, what we're doing as golf professionals is helping them develop a plan that's going to enable them to do that consistently, so that when they come out to the golf course, all of the things that we're teaching them and helping them to tailor made for their game is something that they can put in practice in a regular routine basis. And once they're able to do that with some consistency, they're going to see that their level of play starts to get better as well. And it really becomes down to organization. we've had to become very good organizers in what we do as we prepare for lessons, as we prepare for a new season, whatever the case is. We don't just come out and open the door and say, well, okay, the golfers are coming. I see them coming up the driveway. We'll just figure out what happens this season. No, you prepare for the season. You prepare for return golfers that may be coming back for tune-ups or wanting to take their game to the next level, or you're preparing for a new batch of beginners that are just starting to, get their game on the road. But you have to prepare as a golf coach, as an instructor, to do that. And if you don't, then you're not going to be very successful. And so, I mean, it's the same for them. They've got to be able to do that as well. Jim, I'm going to come back to you. And I think it's important that you kind of set up some mental goals, I think, as well. Just like we set other goals throughout the season. And then it's also important, I think, to monitor them as well, to see how we're progressing through those. So what are maybe some goals that you can think of for sort of the mind game, if you will, that we could set as an example? And then how do we sort of monitor it, and what are we looking for when we're sort of assessing that?
I think as we keep talking about the mental side of the game, there's really two components to it. There's what I'll call the mental processes, and then there's the mental imagery. And so when I set up my goals for either or, the processes are now the pre-shot routine. How do I assess the dynamics of what I'm going to hit? And the mental imagery is the picture of what I'm going to hit. And the picture of what I'm going to hit is going to have a couple items to it. One is, can I control that picture? Does I establish that I want to hit this shot up just right of the flag over the water? Or does my picture look at that and say, oh, geez, don't go in the water? I'm not controlling my image. And then how clear is that image? How clear is it that I can see? I think back to reading something on Jack Nicklaus, and he talked about how he not only saw the flight of the golf ball, he saw its trajectory, it saw its curvature, he saw how it landed on the green and how it reacted on the green, which I think was tremendous. So in setting out our goals, I think we have to look at it from both perspectives. We have to look at it as, how am I going to establish my process? What is my process from arrival at the ball to execution of the shot? Then what is my post-shot process from executing the shot to putting the club away and moving on to the next? And so there's getting ready, there's assessing what I did, and then getting ready again. And I think we can establish a number of items that those involve. But then on the flip side, on the image side, I can work on that controllability and that vividness. I can close my eyes and I can imagine that difficult hole at my golf course that I make bogey on, or double bogey, or worse if I'm a higher handicap. And I can look at that hole in my mind because I've played it enough. I have a great picture of it, and I can picture where I want the ball to go and how I want it to go. And then I can establish my goals on that. Here's my processes. Here's what I'm going to do each and every time. And then I can monitor that post round, and I can monitor it post round with statistics, and I can monitor it post round on just simply reflective imagery or reflecting on it. And then on the image side, I can set out my goals that I want to be able to see my shots, and I want to be able to see them clearly, and then I want to be able to execute those. And so now I can reflect again after my round. Was I engaged? Did I determine this is the picture? And did I stay in that picture? Did I stay within that frame? Or did I deviate and say, here's my picture. Oh, geez, I go in that water all the time.
Yeah.
Now I wasn't in control of my picture. And we have to understand our body will manifest what the mind harbors. So if I can keep that picture of where I want it to go and I can retain the framing of that, I got a great chance for my skill set to perform to that picture.
Well,
so set the processes, set the pictures, monitor it by reflection after the round, after the month, after many rounds, or after the year.
Well said. Very good. John, final question for you is, we have a lot of our players out there that seem to be dragging a lot of emotional baggage along with them. We've talked about that, I know, before, but if we really want to improve our mental game preparation, you've got to be willing to let go. And I always use this analogy. I equate it with, going through the airport. You're dragging your bags along. Some bags you check. Maybe you take a carry-on, which is your most important. That's maybe where your money, where your phone, whatever the case is, all your, your valuables are in there. So the important stuff is in that bag that you're taking on the plane. The other is check bag that you're going to leave, and it's going to get there eventually. And then there's some of it you're not going to bring at all. What do we do with the baggage that we don't want to take with us to the golf course? How do we, in order to improve and prepare for a round, we've got to be willing to let go of the past. How do we do that?
Well, you took my final line. Toss it, leave it. It doesn't need to come with you. I think what most people do is they don't realize the baggage they're bringing with them until it's too late. And we've seen some really good careers, not only in golf, but in other sports, where this baggage at home, or the baggage in business, or the baggage of whatever, now distracts and gets in the way. And we talked about that earlier. How do you leave it back there? It literally takes a mindset, and it does take some energy, and it takes a commitment to basically draw a line in the sand and say, enough's enough. This doesn't come with me. This does not go with me to the golf course. There are some people who do that really, really well. And then there's others, because they're not recognizing what the baggage is, bring it with them. One of the things, this actually occurred today. I've got a collegiate player that freshman year has done pretty well from a mechanics, from a physical fitness standpoint of view, goes to qualify, multiple qualifying rounds. He played 2 days ago, and after 7 holes, he was even par. And the baggage that he had was, wow, if I continue to do this, I may qualify. And he literally, it wasn't that he left the baggage behind. He actually threw the baggage on the plane before he ever got on.
Right.
And that's the other thing that people don't recognize they're doing. They get so far ahead of themselves because they have 1 or 2 holes that were great, where they strung 3 or 4 shots together. Hey, what if I can do it? Well, that's not the what ifs I was talking about before. Those what ifs are situations. If you're thinking, what if I do this? It's great to dream, and it's great to have goals and processes to reach your dreams. But in the middle of a round, any of this baggage is going to get in the way. And I think what I hear most, don't know what Jim hears, but what I hear most is the baggage that gets most in the way is not being in the present. You're so far into the future, having dreams of grandeur, not knowing what those dreams require, or even having the inventory to acquire them. Then all of a sudden you're so disappointed. What's funny about that is the next thing somebody does is, oh, screw it. I'm not going to, forget it.
Right.
And you toss everything away. You toss in the towel. What have you tossed away? You've tossed away the baggage. And now you're back in the present going, well, let me just hit a shot and have some fun.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it comes back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the baggage I see the most as a coach. And it infiltrates at every level. The winner of this week is going to be the one that stays in the present. He's not in the back dragging the bag that you talked about, but he's not 4 holes in front throwing everything onto the plane.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten there yet. The plane hasn't taken off. You got to get there first.
Yeah, and a lot of players, you're exactly right, because a lot of players do, even at the Masters. I'm sure there's a lot of players that probably have gotten themselves into trouble because they were thinking about, 2 holes ahead. Okay, I got to make sure I'm in a good position for these 2 holes that the one I'm playing now and the next one, to make sure when I get there, I'm going to be at a certain score. Otherwise, they start thinking 2-3 holes ahead. And realistically, there is a certain element of truth that you might be thinking about that to some level. But if you get caught up in that as the emotions of it, it can, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of players that we've seen done really great at the Masters, and then all of a sudden it's like somebody pulled the rug out from underneath them, and it's like, what's going on here? They didn't just suddenly lose the skill to be able to hit some good shots. Something got inside their head, whatever it might have been. Something got inside their head that's now caused them to not be in the moment, to either be in the somewhere in the past, or as you say, schlepping the bags up on the plane ahead of time, and they're not focused on what they need to be doing now. But great discussion, guys, as always. Always enjoy having you guys bring your best. We're going to give you a moment or two. John, I'm going to come to you, and then Jim, how the folks, if they want to reach out to you, the best way to do that.
JohnHughesGolf.com, that, or add the hashtag or ampersand or whatever it is ahead of time. Very easy to find me. I'm at the Omni Orlando Resort at Champions Gate. Wonderful place. Love calling it home. Fantastic move for me. Phone numbers on the website. A lot of new content going into the website. A lot of new content going on to YouTube. Reach out. That's as simple as it is. Just reach out. You'll get a response from me, not somebody else. And hope you do come to Orlando and visit me.
Yeah, it's a great place, and John's a great guy to connect with. Jim, what about you? Best way if folks want to reach out to you, and any final thoughts?
Yes. Thank you, John, for a great show. And thank you, Ted, for having me on. You can find me in Frisco, Texas, just a suburb of Dallas. I'm here at the PGA headquarters, and I could be reached at jim@endicottgolf.com.
And all of your contact information is there, so you can reach out to Jim and connect with him, and John at johnhughesgolf.com. All right. Thank you guys for a great discussion on Coach's Corner. Always, I look forward to the next time. I'm going to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our advertisers. Welcome back to Golf Talk Live. Again, I'm your host, Ted Odorico. My very special guest joining me now on the fitness segment of our program is my good friend, certified golf fitness professional, Bob Forman. And here's just a little bit about Bob, and then we'll get into tonight's discussion. He's a former director of fitness and wellness for the Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He's internationally known as a leader in the field of golf fitness, and his programs have been recognized multiple years in a row from 2021 to 2023 by the Golf Fitness Association of America. He holds a Master of Science degree in exercise physiology and a certified golf fitness instructor through the TPI, or Titleist Performance Institute. And he's available for fitness sessions and all kinds of great things. And I'm going to get him to just tell you a little bit about his book here in just a moment. But Bob, welcome back to Golf Talk Live.
Thanks, Ted. Pleasure being here.
All right. So just quickly, if you want to go ahead and give a quick plug to the book, and I'll give you an opportunity again as we wrap up in a little bit, but just let folks know about your book and where can they go and get it.
Yeah, the book is on the book patch, and it's called Functional Golf Fitness Training. And it talks about, all the things that we've talked about, how to go about assessing for specific musculoskeletal deficiencies that might be impacting your golf swing, your playing performance, your distance, injury potential. It kind of goes into explain some exercises that you can do for each specific deficiency that the golfers may have. So it's a good resource book for golfers, for coaches, and for PGA teaching professionals.
And it's at the Golf Patch?
The book patch.
Book patch. I'm sorry, book patch.
Book patch.
Perfect. All right, we'll give that again a little bit later on when we're finished. So what I'm going to do, Bob, is you sent me a number of images, and I've sort of put them together like we did the last time. And we're going to talk about really power this particular segment. We talked about strength and so forth, but we're really going to talk about building up power in our swing. And here's some exercise. So I'm going to run this here, and then you're going to talk. The first one we're going to talk about is the chest, and here we're going to go to the image here. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing. What's the exercise here, and what is it? What are you specifically are you working on?
All right, so this is a medicine ball slam. We're kind of isolating the chest and the back of the arms, the tricep, and we're working on power exercise or speed exercises. And they are important to do because they help to recruit the faster twitch muscle fibers that are the muscle groups that you want to recruit when you're swinging the golf club, because the faster twitch are responsible for short, quick bursts of energy. So it takes, 1.2, 1.5 seconds to swing a golf club. So you want to be able to recruit those guys. So unfortunately, as we get older, we lose muscle tissue, and a lot of that muscle tissue we lose is those type 2 or fast twitch muscle fibers. So you have to train those, the ones that you have left at least. Right. And the only way you're going to do that and to help recruit those is to do these power/speed exercises. Now, you want to build up that strength base before you get into the power exercises because they're a little more intense. They will challenge your cardio. So it's definitely a progression that you want to follow. But once you've built up that strength base that we talked about 2 weeks ago, you can definitely start to incorporate these power exercises. So this exercise here, you can do it against the cement wall. You can do it against the rebounder here that I'm doing in the picture. And again, it isolates the chest and the back of the arms. And you're doing like 15 to 20 reps as quick as possible and recruiting, like I say, those muscle groups that you're going to use swinging the golf club.
And I noticed too, when I look at the image here, folks may not see it because you've obviously got slacks on, but you're obviously in a very athletic position. Your knees are not locked. You're actually almost very similar. I mean, you're not crouched over, your upper body's not leaning over like you would in a golf swing, but you're in a very athletic position because you're obviously, as that ball rebounds back, you want to make sure it's not knocking you over. So your knees are slightly flexed a little bit, if you will, to get in that athletic position. I want to move to the next slide because, again, this is sort of a different position. So let me just advance that through to the next one, and then I'll stop and then let you explain what you're doing here. So here's another exercise, the chest on the ball. So let's talk about this one here. What are you doing differently here? And how is this? Is this isolating the same set of muscles, or is this doing something different?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, this is a little more progressive. Once you've done that chest slam standing, you can get into the lying position here on a stability ball. You got to have a little more control because you don't want that ball to hit you in the face as it's coming down. And the ball you're using here, I mean, obviously there's different types of weighted balls that you can use. You can start light and work heavier as, you feel the strength starting to come on. And with this, on a stability ball, anytime you do exercises on a stability ball, you're getting some added benefits in that, I'm stabilizing myself on the ball. So you got to engage the core to do that. And you can see my hips are parallel to the floor. So that engages those all important glutes, your butt muscles and, the king of the golf swing. So you want to keep those nice and strong. So this is like a 3-for type exercise. You're working those faster twitch muscle fibers, tossing that ball back and forth, and you're working those glutes and you're working the core.
And essentially, really, this is, again, you refer to it as a progressive, but a more advanced move, if you will, for those that are already, in pretty decent shape and that want to, challenge themselves a little bit more. And I just want to emphasize too, very quick, because you mentioned about the different weighted balls and things like that. And I'm talking about the one actually you're throwing up into the air. Is you want to be careful not to get something too heavy because you don't want to run the risk of injury. Some people, there's some pretty heavy medicine balls out there, and obviously, maybe some younger, stronger players might be able to go up a little bit more than some of our senior players. but you don't want to get one that's too heavy either, because then you run the risk of maybe potentially injuring or putting strain on wrists and forearms and things like that, correct?
Correct. I mean, they come in 4 pound, 6 pound, 8 pound, 10 pound. So yeah, I would start with a lighter ball and work your way up. And again, and that's why it's important to work the strength component first. Give yourself a good base, a few weeks of doing strength exercises, so that when you get into these more intense power exercises, your body's prepared for that.
Yeah, let me advance to the next image. We're going to talk about another exercise. Now, this one here, I apologize for those viewing that we're not seeing the ball. You've got the ball actually above your head. I can't show it here, but for some reason, this particular image got cut off or got cropped off somehow. But essentially, you're doing that. So what are you getting ready to do here? And then we'll go to the next image, which will, I think, clearly make it understandable about what you're doing. But you've got the ball above your head, same yellow medicine ball that you're using in the other images we've seen. What are you getting ready to do here? What's this particular exercise?
So these are lat slams. So basically in a standing position, again, with the knees bent so that you're not putting too much pressure on the lower back. You got the ball overhead, and basically you're just slamming it into the floor, catching it on the way up, slamming it into the floor, catching it on the way up. And you're doing that, again, 15, 20 times or so to really work those upper body, the lats in the trunk there. And again, it's a great exercise, another good power exercise to incorporate into your routine.
Yeah, and here's, I just wanted to fast forward here. Here's the image here. You can see that Bob's, slamming this down. Obviously, you can see the blur as the ball's going down. So again, you're starting with it above your head with your arms extended, some knee flex, of course. You don't want them ramrod straight. And then you're throwing it down, and of course, the ball's going to come back up, and you're going to catch that, bring it up again, and do the same thing over and again, 15, maybe 20 times.
Yeah.
Again, with an appropriate weighted ball for your skill level.
And you can do it standing, and then an alternative would be to do it while you're sitting on a flat bench and the end of a flat bench.
Yep.
But when you do it on a flat bench, you want to alternate side to side. So again, you can kind of be creative when you're doing these speed/power exercises. So if you're sitting on a bench, you're going to slam it on your left side, catch it, bring it up over your head, slam it on the right side, catch it coming overhead. So that, again, you're going to engage a little more core while you're working the specific exercises in the routine.
And what's interesting about this is you're not involving heavy weights. This is a mistake I think a lot of golfers make as they get into specific weight training. They're using heavier weights, thinking that's going to build strength and power and things. And actually, the opposite happens because they end up bulking themselves up too much. The muscles are not getting a good stretch, and they end up being actually tighter than what they want. They want more, because in golf you want flexibility. You want to be able to have good stretch muscles. You want to have that flexibility. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good shoulder turn going back, and certainly in the follow through as well. So that's an issue as well, right? Is again, I'm not saying don't do weights in any sort of exercise routine, but if you're going to get golf, golf ready, if you will, there's certain exercises that are going to be more conducive for a better player, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the prerequisite for power is flexibility and strength. So, again, it's important to emphasize you want to build a base of strength, do your stretching as well. And then at some point, and if you work with a trainer, golf fitness professional, he or she will know when to progress you into the more intense exercise. But again, this especially for all golfers really, but especially for the older golfer over 40 or 50 years old, that they don't really think about the power phase of an exercise routine, and they should be, because like I say, we lose muscle mass as we get older. We're losing about 3 to 8% every decade once you hit the age of 30, and it just takes off when you hit 50. So
it doesn't get a whole lot better in 60 either. So
if you're not doing strength training, you're doing yourself a disservice. And it's important for balance. It's important for power generation.
Yeah, as well. All right, let's move on to the next one here. All right, so here's another exercise. I think I know it. This is I believe it's called the glute swing. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a glute swing, kettlebell swing. I'm using a dumbbell here, and I'm doing it with one arm. but you can do it with kettlebells. Most people will do it with a kettlebell where they're kind of swinging it between your legs. The important part of this exercise, and this is again more of a glute power exercise, you want the emphasis to be in the glutes. You want the glutes to fire and to lift the hips up so that the arms will come up really without using any effort to raise the arms. You want that momentum from the hips to raise the weight up. And it's a great exercise, again, to kind of work those faster twitch muscle fibers in the lower body, specifically the glutes. Here I'm doing it one arm. Again, that's a little more progressive. You can start with both hands on a kettlebell, and eventually you can switch over to a one-arm swing, but really good exercise. And this one will definitely get you winded.
Yeah, and again, I notice again, you're using certainly a weight that's giving you some resistance, but you're not using a 50-pound weight here or something. So let me just go to the next, because I want people to see what the actual sort of end result looks like after. So that's your starting position, and here's essentially what you're trying to do.
Right.
But you're using, as you said, you're using the glutes to fire you up. You're not just slinging your arms up with the weight. You're actually using the bigger muscles of your glutes and in that area to bring you up, and then you're going back down into the previous position. You're doing that again, maybe not quite 15 times, or for advanced maybe, but to start out with, maybe you might want to scale it back to 6 to 8 times until you get kind of used to it. And you got to make sure you do it correct. The main thing I want to emphasize to people too, and I want to get across, is these are a lot of great exercises. You're obviously a golf certified fitness professional. You know how to do these things properly. You want to make sure that you're really looking and doing these things correctly, and you want to make sure that somebody like yourself is there to sort of guide them initially until they learn to do it correctly, because you can obviously hurt yourself if you're, again, that's why I'm trying to emphasize about the weights. And I always say, and I'll say this again tonight, is anybody that wants to get into these exercises, they're obviously tried and true exercise that'll definitely help your game, but you want to make sure you consult with your physician in that first, especially if you're having any issues physically. You want to make sure that you're safe to go ahead and do these things and not getting yourself in a situation where you may injure yourself. So I want to put that out there. But this is a great one. Again, you want to fire those glutes. I want to move on because I know we've got a couple of others here, I think, that I want you to
go back to this one too. I mean, you really want minimal effort from the upper body. You really want to power up that arm or those arms with the glutes. So it's like I say, and that's a good point about being in shape and not having any issues, because the power exercises will definitely tax the system.
Yeah. And here we are. This is this one here is called a lat leap.
Lateral leap.
Yeah. So basically, what you're doing is you're pivoting to your and again, if you're a right-handed golfer, you're pivoting to your back leg, right? If you're a right-handed golfer, that's the best way to describe it. And then I'm going to advance it just to the other side, because I want people to see what's going to happen here. And then if we need to come back, that's fine. But so you're basically moving to your right side, which would be your back leg. But again, you're still facing, you're not twisting, you're not turning the upper body. You're staying centered, and you're just going to that back leg. And then we're going to move to the next image here, and you're going to see what Bob does in the next image and why you call it a leap. Now you're over on your left side. So what are we doing here, and how is this beneficial to the golf swing?
Well, just like the side step strength exercise that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, this is kind of the power exercise for that. It's a lateral movement. You're leaping from your right foot to your left foot, back to your right foot, left foot. Again, you're doing that 10 to 15 sets back and forth. And you're primarily using that gluteus medius, that hip stabilizer, that one that's going to initiate the downswing. So this is a real good exercise. But again, you want to build up to this because it's going to put a lot of pressure on the ankles, the knees, the hip. But once you do develop that base and the strength, again, this is a real good exercise to kind of work that power move into the downswing in your golf swing.
Yeah. And again, now how often, if I was to, put these exercises, I think there was four or five exercises here. If I wanted them to put them in a routine, typically how long should I spend if I was to piece them all together? I mean, I know they're probably only a couple of minutes each, but if I was putting together, say 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes max? And how often should I be doing these to really see benefits? Because again, this is where it boils down to. People are time restraint. It don't have a lot of time for, full workouts anymore, but this is definitely something. So is this something that you want to do maybe 2-3 times a week if you can squeeze that in?
Yeah, minimally, I would do an upper body and a lower body. So, like the leap and maybe a medicine ball slam in your workout. And I
Yeah.
tended to do that with golfers at the end of the workout. Do the strength stuff first, then get into the power stuff, and then follow it up with some stretching at the end. But you don't have to go crazy with it. Again, we're talking about kind of average, the average golfer. They will definitely benefit you. And again, the consistency is really the key. And you got to do them over a period of time before you really start to feel the benefit from that. And you will definitely feel the benefit on the golf course and on your distance specifically, because again, I mean, you're talking about club head speed and you're talking about miles per hour, and it's the fast twitch muscle fibers that are going to get you there.
Yeah. And again, there's no excuse. It doesn't matter what age you are. Obviously, again, you want to consult with your physician, and you want to make sure that you're getting connecting with somebody like yourself that's golf fitness certified, that is going to tailor and customize a plan for you that's going to help you with your golf game. I mean, there's a lot of great fitness instructors out there, but if they're not familiar with golf and what muscles and how the golf swing works, and that, they may move you in a direction that may not be as beneficial for your golf game. So you want to definitely reach out to somebody like Bob here. And I think these are really great exercises because, again, really they can be done. And again, for those that maybe are a little bit more challenged, maybe a little bit older, I'm sure most of these exercises, again, you had a progressive and you had a sort of a standard, can be modified somewhat if need be. If you've got some of our super seniors that still like to get out and golf, but maybe should be doing some of this stuff, there's modifications. And again, you could help walk them through that program at some point if they wanted to work with you. So let's do this. Let's give them how they can best reach out to you. And then I'll give you a chance to plug your book again and then get you to give some final thoughts. Give us your final thoughts first on what we talked about and how we're going to utilize this to build strength and power, if you will, for this season coming up, and then go ahead and plug your book.
Well, any type of exercise is going to benefit the golfer. I mean, but it's in most golfers, from my experience over the years that I've been working with them, stretching is probably the primary goal that they want to achieve, because almost every golfer that I put through an assessment, it comes down to range of motion, flexibility. That is their number one priority. But incorporating some strength moves in there, again, will help in terms of, feeling better out on the golf course, getting through the round without feeling fatigued, not feeling as sore the next day. And then incorporating the power exercises, which I think a lot of golfers don't do, but they really should consider that, take a look at that and implement those, because again, those are the exercises that are going to work the muscle groups you're going to use while you're swinging the golf club. So if you can get all three in, that would be great. Progress up to the triad, and start off easy, progress. You don't have to go nuts. And like I say, 20 to 25 minutes 3 times a week is all you need.
Yeah, and we're still early in the season yet, so it's you have an opportunity to kind of ease into it right now. You don't have to go full steam right away. Let's work into it. Let's ease into it for the season. A lot of our northeastern golfers, northwest, if you will, that are still trying to thaw out from some of this, cooler weather. You don't want to be jumping into, everything too quickly. You're not maybe quite ready to get out there and hit the links quite yet. So here's a good opportunity to get yourself ready. So ease into the exercise, but definitely you want to reach out to somebody like Bob. And Bob, very quickly, if you want to go ahead and plug your book again, and then let the folks know the best way if they want to reach out.
It's Functional Golf Fitness Training. It's on the book patch, and in my email if they want to contact me with specific questions. It's Bob at Golf Fit Carolina, 1F and 1T, GOLFIT Carolina.com.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you as always for giving some great insight into how to get ready for this season. And my very special golf fitness guest, Bob Forman has been doing this for many, many years and going to hopefully continue to do it for many more. But thank you, Bob, for joining me tonight. I know you'll hang on for just a second after we clear out. I'm going to take another quick short commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors. And when I come back, I'll be joined by the co-founder, CEO of Zigit, Elsbeth Hurry. She'll be here in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to reach your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. And my next guest is, of course, the co-founder and CEO of Zigit, Elsbeth Hurry. And here's a little bit more on Elsbeth. Let me just tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll begin tonight's special featured guest interview. So as I mentioned, she is the co-founder and CEO of Zigit, and it's a patent-pending mobile app-enabled retail platform for easy, convenient, and profitable self-serving of controlled products at Zigit-enabled dispensing stations across golf courses, sports entertainment, event, and other venues. We're going to talk about that as well as many other things. So please welcome my very special guest back to the show. She's been on before, but this is the first time on the new platform. Elsbeth, welcome back to Golf Talk Live.
Thank you so much, Ted.
I'm excited to have you on. And I know when we talked the last time and you were telling us about the business, I was extremely impressed with what you guys do. I mean, this is just a game changer for the industry. Now you're really excited, and it's not just unique to golf. It's something that you're obviously putting out in other, as I mentioned, to other different sporting events and other venues.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously this is something that's really taking root in golf. So for those that maybe aren't familiar with Zigit,
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about the origins of Zigit and the sort of the movement, if you will, of the automated retail.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess the origins, my co-founder, John, he's a perpetual ideator. He's always coming up with patents and observing things that aren't as obvious to other people. But especially during COVID, I think we all saw kind of a rapid acceleration of, more self-service demand, more automation, in some of that. So that definitely happened. And especially in spaces where, staffing is limited, that becomes an even bigger issue. So I think that's really what kind of brought him to this idea of a self-service platform that can enable almost any type of hardware to create automation for controlled items, things like alcohol and
Sure.
even pharmaceuticals theoretically. But it really allows for more secure, seamless transactions in a compliant way in random places like golf courses. It doesn't need Wi-Fi. So it's a very mobile solution since it's app-based.
So let's talk a little bit about the technology, the Zigit technology, how it actually works, and so walk us through a scenario, if would be probably the best way to do it. So if I'm at the golf course, I'm playing with my foursome, what is it I need to do initially to be able to utilize and to access Zigit? How does it, am I downloading an app, that sort of thing? Walk us through the process and then explain how the technology sort of works, if you will, and what's going to happen. So just sort of walk through that scenario.
Yeah, the very first time you want to use Zigit, you do have to download the app. It's free. It's on the App Store, Google Play Store, Zigit. And that first enrollment takes about 90 seconds. And the reason it takes a little bit longer is that you're scanning your ID. It's authenticating that it's a valid federal ID.
Sure.
You're scanning your face. It creates a face hash that gets stored on your phone. And that's what's used when you run into a Zigit-enabled station. As I mentioned, we're pretty much hardware agnostic. So when you're on a golf course, let's say, there could be a dispensing station at hole 7. And then if you're already enrolled, you just scan the box. It'll pop up a menu of what's in there. You select what you want. Every time you buy something, if it's alcoholic, it will make you take a selfie. If you're under 18, it won't. It won't even ask you to enroll if you're just ordering Gatorade. But it'll make you take a selfie, and then it'll dispense your products. So it takes about 30 seconds to get a drink.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible because, and I don't want to dismiss the young cart girls that drive around, but even they're not that quick. So
Right.
by the time, this is a great thing. And now, and these are the dispensing stations, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They're placed not just in one location, they've out through various holes. So typically what has been sort of the trend from what you've done so far, I mean, obviously you might have
Yeah.
some when you're first, coming up and they're available. Typically, what has the golf courses done from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, really, one of the biggest advantages of the system is guest experience. Yes, it drives profitability and things, but it is guest experience because no matter how good you are with golf, you can't be everywhere at once if you're in a beer cart. It's just not
Right.
possible.
Right.
And so it's really a synergistic technology to beer carts. So it's in addition to, and because of that, the best places that we've seen so far that tend to do the best are near restrooms, maybe on the first 9 and the back 9, on driving ranges, if there's no cart service over there. So it's usually those sorts of places. On course and driving range tend to be where we see the most activity. We also see it at, some people have athletic clubs or something like that, where again, they don't have any sort of service. So it augments a beer cart. And strangely, and maybe not so strangely, we found over time that when we place these, it actually drives up beer cart sales as well. So the added convenience is driving just more overall satisfaction, more free flow of purchase, and it really uplifts beer carts as well.
And I want you to touch on a little bit too about Zigit, how you entered the golf market, if you will. And obviously you've touched on a little bit at some of the benefits, obviously for golfers, but also for the golf courses. How are they benefiting, and how are they able to monitor the process? Are they able to see when things are getting low and that sort of thing? Maybe you could walk through that a little bit too, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's really set up as a compliance aid and efficiency platform. So it's all catered by location. So it's app-based. You can access it through an iPad, through an iPhone, or through a laptop or a computer if you're the retailer.
Right.
But you can set everything up so that you have real-time inventory if you're the retailer. You always know. You can set up alerts so that, your beer cart will get an alert if slot 7 has gone below a certain amount, you need
Right.
more ultras or whatever it might be. So it's very practical. And most of the hardware that's used hold a large number of items. So you really don't have to refill it very often on a golf course. Other things that I think are really suitable or valuable for the retailers is they can really customize it. So again, a lot of people will set a limit of how many drinks somebody can get over the round. You can also add in drinks if you're doing a tournament, and you're giving two free drinks as part of that tournament. You can set it up so that each person that's registered or signed up for the tournament can get their 2 free drinks through the machine. So it's very, very customizable, which I think is important for the retailers. There's also a lot of actionable data. We do not share any privacy data. The privacy data stays private. That's why we're phone-based. But we do have de-identified demographic data. So, if there's a ladies tournament coming up, what are the things that they tend to buy? What do they want to have in those machines? And it's very easy to swap drinks out based on different events and things like that.
Talk about, if you wouldn't mind too, when you've touched on when the I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch my thought here.
That's okay.
The dispensing unit, if a certain area is getting low, obviously they have the ability to restock or what have you. So that's giving them a lot of valuable information in real time. But you mentioned something, and I want you to just sort of explain for those maybe out there that are not as tech savvy. You mentioned that it doesn't require Wi-Fi, so it's app-based and that. How is it communicating? If it's purely app-based, it's going over cell phone data. Is that the idea? Then essentially what it's doing?
That's right.
Okay.
You need about the same amount of cell signal that you would have to send a text. And so usually if there's a remote course, we can do a walkthrough and measure the cell signal. If the cell signal isn't very good at that restroom, you can put a booster that will boost for the 5 feet around it, which is more than enough. And that's part of what makes it more flexible. Since it only needs standard power and really nothing else, It means that, one, you can move it from place to place. Two, you can put it in remote places where otherwise you wouldn't probably be able to have service. And, it's really kind of it's an add-on for F&B service, but it's also a little bit of a F&B insurance policy in the sense that, you've always got a reliable kind of dispensing partner right there at hole 7. And the golfers learn to know that no matter what, I can get something at 7 or whatever it is. So it kind of adds that extra convenience for people.
And I would imagine because of the ease of use and the way it's set up through cell systems, is if somebody is, let's say, on hole 2 or 3, and they're thinking, by the time I get to hole 9, I'm going to feel like refreshment, they can go ahead and actually order that ahead of time. How far in advance can they order that? And because obviously you get your timing. And how does that work? How does that process work? Is the drink waiting for them? What happens?
Yeah, the way it works right now, it's venue specific. But almost all the venues that allow for pre-order or pre-purchase, kind of like Starbucks would, it's same day. So if you're at hole 2, something's coming up, you work it out with your friends of who wants what, and you order it, then it will hold that there. The main difference is, and you buy it ahead of time, and it will make you do a selfie when you're purchasing it, even from your golf cart. Then when you show up, you scan it. Okay. It'll know you're there for your order, and it'll just make you selfie again. So there might be a lot of selfies involved, but they're very, very quick, right?
Who doesn't like taking a selfie, right?
You, right? Yeah.
That's fantastic. So there's no real timing. I can order it anytime. Same thing with later. So it's not like it has to be ordered a certain period of time ahead of time, because once the order is put in, the system knows that when I scan it, now it knows I'm ready. Okay, I'm there now. I've arrived, and it's going to go through, the steps to facilitate.
And the dispensing stations that we use on golf courses, and again, you can use anything, but the ones that we typically use are indoor, outdoor rated that can withstand. We've got a bunch of Tampa courses that made it through Helene and Milton, so we know they're durable. Wow. But they usually keep the drinks at around 34 degrees. It can be set however you want. But if you've pre-purchased, it's just going to be there. It's already purchased. It's already allocated for you, and you can pick it up anytime you want.
What has been some of the early feedback, both from the golf courses and also from golfers? You get a lot of compliments in that. And typically, what do they appreciate most about some of the features that they get through Zigit?
Yeah, I think with the golfers, it's surprising, but the ice cold is big. The no tipping is strangely big, and the just the consistency. I can always get a drink here. If there's a beer cart when you roll up to 7, and then you probably buy from the beer cart. That's fine. We're not here to get rid of human interaction. We're here to augment it so it can be used as effectively as a course wants to. So they like the ease, the speed, and really the consistency of knowing there's a reliable experience that they can have when they want it. In terms of the courses, I would say the biggest advantages I've seen, other than, incremental sales and inventory reduction of shrinkage, is some interesting things have come across. They've been able to do, there's a lot of actionable data, as I mentioned before. So, they might see that their beer cart's kind of underwater on Mondays. Once you have a certain number of a certain amount of adoptees of your avid golfers, they don't seem to care if you don't have beer carts on Monday. So you move that cart person maybe to Saturdays, so you can have a little more beer cart service on the busy days. Right. So it allows you to kind of think through, because you're not going to staff on a partially rainy day on a Monday. It doesn't make sense, but there's still an option for people, because the box doesn't care if it's raining or if it's a slow day, right?
Yeah, and with the, like you said, with the data that you're getting back, they're able to see what their peak times are and where the times that there's maybe a little bit slow, so they can adjust their employee schedules to monitor, to adjust accordingly. So
it's actually adjusted for some people. They've adjusted even their beer cart schedules, because they've been able to see more of the timing of drinks and what's being offered. So that's been helpful for them as well.
And this has got to be great for big events too, especially, again, mostly when they've got a corporate event or some other, a club championship going on. they're probably going to have the carts in full effect. But this is a great addition to it as well, because with so many people out in the golf course at any given time like that, you're going to want to make sure that everybody's being serviced. And, unfortunately, they typically only have maybe one or two cart girls or cart, beverage people out in the golf course in time. And when you've got 144 players in a tournament, it's pretty hard. So here's some other options. And so it's a great sort of a marriage, if you will, for the golf course. What has been some of the responses from the courses themselves? What's been some of the feedbacks, and what specifically do they like about Zigit? What has it done for them that they've said to you?
I think it's been, I think it's just provided more consistency. That's what we hear. So it's elevated guest experience. It sounds maybe a little bit silly, but it also is giving kind of a more innovative, tech savvy kind of branding to their F&B, which is really appealing to some of the 30-somethings demographic, because it's something that they're demanding and they want. So it kind of brings us into this, this decade, and makes it more forward thinking. So I think they like that. They like that it's automated, and they like that there's less immediate reliance on staffing. You're not getting rid of staffing. This augments staffing. That, that's the plan, is not to get rid of people. It's to use them most effectively. So I would say that's probably the biggest feedback we've gotten from courses, from management companies. What's interesting, or groups that have more than one course, we're starting to see more portfolio-wide intelligence again. A lot of times there's different points of sale systems. We can patch into those, but what's happening over here and what's happening over here, they're able to find out, things that could be actionable from one course for another, without necessarily, letting people know how they got that information, if that makes sense. So
that makes perfect sense.
It's helpful.
Are there also two, potentially advertising opportunities with Zigit, where, let's say a golf course is using Zigit, using the dispensing machines and that? Are there opportunities? And also through the app, can they integrate for advertising? Maybe they've got corporate, maybe it's a big an area that they've got events coming in, and people want to take advantage of that and have some sort of marketing or corporate sponsorship opportunities. Is that something that's available through the platform as well?
Yeah. So right now there's quite a bit of interest, depending on the type of course. There's obviously a whole range of courses, right? So some of the courses that are more interested in advertising, we've seen a lot of co-marketing that we can do with local brands, whether those be local IPAs or some sort of specialty drink, that sort of thing. So there is opportunities for that, and we have done that. Festivals, it's huge for that, because it's you can make these glowing boxes even in the middle of a field if you want to.
Right.
So it's very good for that. Private courses, they tend to have a little bit different view on that. So, a lot of times you won't even see that there's a box. It'll be built into a comfort station. So it really depends. We haven't done in-app advertising yet, just because we've been more focused on the customer experience. I do think there's an opportunity for that, particularly when you're talking about tournaments again, because it's just a natural fit. So I do think that. The other thing too that is valuable for other stakeholders, the brands and some of those opportunities, again, the data that we get, we don't share privacy information, but the data we get has never been available. Yep. And that data can help make their advertising dollars more efficient. It can help their targeting be more efficient. And some of that can be done in a way where, any sort of costs can be offset for retailers. So it's a very low cost solution for retailers because of that.
Let's just touch a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit more with the experience for the golfer. So in addition to being able to obviously order a drink or what have you, and obviously as they process that order, is the app itself generating a receipt? Is that going to an email, or how is that done? Because obviously it's not typical point of sale where they can get a paper receipt. So are they getting some sort of a confirmation of that order? And where does that go? Is it a text, or is it either or? They have the option.
It's an app-based platform. So when you go in the app, if you want to see your order history, you can. If you want that emailed to yourself, you can. Each course might have a different retailer. Pretty much every course does, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we're not the retailer of anything. We're the platform. But if you are at one course in Tampa and you have something on this day and then another course in Tampa on another day, you can just scroll through, find the order receipt that you want, have it emailed or whatever you want to do. So it's all available there, kind of at your fingertips if they need that. So
yeah, and that's great because again, people can monitor their own personal expenses. Now the courses obviously get for obvious reasons do get a certain amount of the information. They don't get obviously the more confidential information, but they do for purposes of seeing what products are moving and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yeah. They know exactly what's sold and when, and
Right.
they know it's user 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's a member-based course, and members decide to use their member pay, then they're giving permission for them to charge member pay. That would make it clear that John Smith just bought this drink, right?
Gotcha.
So they would have that access.
So it can be integrated with, so it can be integrated with member pay. Then that's
Exactly.
great. I mean, that's fantastic. So we touched on the very beginning. I mentioned when I was doing the introduction that obviously this is going to be not just in golf courses but other sporting events and other things. So what are some of the other industries that Zigit will apply short and longer term? What are some of the other things that you're currently in besides golf, and what is your sort of vision as you move forward?
Yeah, we're actively expanding into resorts and festivals, outdoor events, and we have already some arenas and music venues and things like that. But really, we're focused as a strategy, at least initially, because we're new and we're small. But we're focused on these places that might have, traditional staffing models aren't really practical, right? Or you have location issues. Like think about an amphitheater where it's just not that easy to drop, a whole new concession area at the end of that field or whatever it might be.
Right.
So we're really focused on that. Since we're a very low capital, we can layer on almost any type of capital infrastructure. We can go almost anywhere. So we're focused on those things, pop-up venues and the like. But the IP also has applications, and this is, we're looking at separate things for this, but there is applications for RX and other things in the future. We're really focused right now on primarily golf. And then we, again, as I mentioned, airports, resorts, some of these other things, which are nice complements.
Yeah, that sounds great. So let's just touch a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, on we understand that when they're placing the order, it's communicating with the dispensing unit and that. What goes on, because you're not providing, or are you providing the dispensing unit itself? Is that something that's coming through a supplier that you're working with that's partnered with you guys? In other words, is it a special machine that's required, or is it something that can be adapted onto an existing dispensing?
Yeah, it's both, I guess.
Okay.
We're not a hardware manufacturer or seller. This is not our core business. That being said, we do see ourselves as, service plus in everything, right? So if you have hardware, we have a controller about the size of a cell phone that patches into the MDB board, which basically takes over the brain of whatever hardware you're using, right? And it makes it so that it directly is controlled by the phone, the smartphone. So we will help source that. We are working with a variety of hardware providers, though. And we're largely outsourcing a lot of that. So regional based hardware suppliers, so that if anything were to happen, these things are pretty robust, but if anything needs to be fixed, that way it's easy to fix it, that sort of thing. So we are all about, really, we've spent the last year working in golf, and it's really starting to accelerate. And we are really stepping into a lot more targeted partnerships and collaborations, because we're not going to be everything for everybody. There's already people out there.
Yeah.
So we're doing the same thing on the hardware side, finding the best partners to be able to provide things. However, to your question before, if you already have some sort of dispensing style, vending style hardware, we can work with that too.
Yeah. See, I like that. That's what really makes it interesting, is because if somebody has that hardware already, you have the ability to integrate, especially, I mean, obviously, if they're dealing with machinery that's 20 years old, I mean, that's obviously a whole different thing. But, most of the courses have kept things pretty up to date. So if you've got an existing golf course that has hardware and you come along and say, hey, we can, automate this in a better way for you, that's going to bring you more revenue and so on and so forth. I like the fact that you are able to very easily integrate with what they exist, so they don't have to go out and buy all new, machinery necessarily and go that route. And that's a big foot in the door for you to be able to come along and say that.
It's very intentional because we want to be the flexible system. The other thing too, since we are a compliance aid as well, it's very important based off of all the research we've done to be app-based, because again, we wouldn't want any of your privacy information to be stored or transmitted through hardware. It's too easy to hack. So if it's going through your phone, I guess if your phone got hacked and they could figure out the AI algorithms we have, maybe they could hack yours, but they couldn't hack your buddy. So, I mean, it's a much better system for where privacy is going. And we want to be forward thinking as it relates to keeping up with privacy and where we think it's going to go.
Yeah. And I think there's more and more safeguards coming out now anyways than, that was 10 years ago. I mean, the technology is just, is what you're doing, has it already, and you'll understand when I ask this question, I have to frame it a certain way, but is there a certain element of AI already adopted in what you're doing, or is it something that you see that's going to be integrated in the future moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an AI system. When you're looking at authenticating IDs and things, it's all about data sets.
Yep.
The greater the data set, the better the value, and the better the accuracy, right?
Sure.
So we've been very intentional. We do not, by design, we're bringing everything together and we're making it a seamless service. And our IP is all around that. But we are not the person that authenticates the ID. And we are not the person that does the biometrics, because we've partnered instead with who we believe are the best partners there, that have the best data sets, that have the best history. So for instance, for authentication, our authenticator does over 2.5 million authentications of federal IDs every day.
Yeah.
And our biometric authenticator does over 250 million biometric authentications a day. So with those data sets, their AI is so far superior to, a startup or a new group, just because they're ahead of it. They catch things before other people can.
Yeah.
And the effectiveness of that is incredible in terms of, it far surpasses any capability that a human would have in terms of verifying an ID. And we do catch fake IDs all the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
And, especially on golf courses.
Oh, yeah.
It's been interesting for us, and I think for retailers, that's positive. One, we catch them. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we confiscate it, because you can enroll at your desk at home. But what ends up happening, especially when it's on course, somebody gets rejected because of X, Y, or Z, and they can still buy a Coke or Gatorade, and they almost always do. Maybe it's to save face, but they're still buying a drink, and that's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with buying all the Gatorades you want.
No, exactly. So the golf course is still benefiting from that use. If you were going to, give some advice to golf courses or country clubs, and as you talked about getting into more resorts, as it pertains to Zigit, what would that be? What would you say to them? What would be your conversation as you approach them? I guess your pitch, if you will.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess my point is, don't wait for the future of F&B to hit you across the face, because, we see a future where there'll be more autonomy. There'll be more self-service delivery. Eventually, if you look at the rest of where things are going, there could be robots delivering things. Our system is capable of helping bring all those into the fold when you're ready, because our patents can work with drones, can work with whatever. So it's kind of, you have an opportunity here to kind of bring yourself forward for the next generation of golfers, and you could be ahead of the curve. I think it helps your brand, it helps your guest experience, and a whole bunch of other things. So there's little to no cost to get started, because again, it's not an expensive upgrade on your system. And it can deliver immediate results, measurable results. And so I guess my encouragement is, if If you want to stick your toe in, then stick your toe in with one station. If you want to go with 3 stations, that's typical for an 18-hole course, then go with that. But yeah, I guess my advice would be there's really no reason to wait, and there's really no risk to starting.
How do you set up if you're going to a brand new facility that doesn't have Zigit yet and is not using your platform? Typically, what is the process? How long does it take from walking in the door and saying, here, we've got this, we want you to try it, before you're able to integrate into what they currently have, or get things up and running? How quickly can you turn it around for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite fast. If the hardware is already available.
Sure, which most probably do have it.
Yeah. If the hardware is already available, then, we simply need to know what drinks and get the system set up. We can do that from a distance. If there's a member pay, we need to set up an interface there. And again, all that happens before we even go to the course. But then on the day of, we usually like to be there for a day and a half if we're setting up. It doesn't take that long to set it up, but it's usually nice to set it up. There is, we work with each course ahead of time to figure out what sort of marketing or adoption programs they want to use. It really depends on the type of course. Like if it's a membership only course, that's really different than somebody that has like vacationers. So what's going to be best for them? What tools can we bring to help them start that adoption? So we'll set up the hardware that first day, make sure that their staff understands how to use it, give them logins for their function. You can set up functions for people that are overseeing the whole system or somebody that's just stocking inventory, et cetera. And then we usually stick around for another half day just to, if our team can, they want to golf. That's always big.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they also want to kind of talk it up and make sure that they can get that day of golfers kind of underway and get them used to it.
So to keep it just simple, I'm just going to give you a scenario, and I want to see how this scenario would play out. So once you do the initial setup, and let's say there were, doesn't matter, 1 to 3 machines, let's say they decide to put on the facility, and let's say each machine has up to a 10 drink capacity. Now they're going to get real-time data as things progress along. You've set all that up for them initially, but moving forward, if they want to make adjustments, let's say 2 of the drinks are just not big sellers and it's not worth it for them to carry, they've got something else. Should they go and easily make the modifications themselves, or do they need to get back to you to have that done? How does that?
Yeah, they can absolutely set it up themselves. It's not difficult. However, what we generally set up products for people because it takes us 5 minutes, and it's just, why shouldn't we? This is meant to be seamless for them, right? So we'll set up any of their product offerings. If they want to add another one, we'll throw it in there. The one thing that they do is they need to empty out the slot and put in the other drink, right? Because they're the ones managing the inventory as the liquor seller, right? So, but yeah, we believe in making it as seamless as possible for them. So there's certain things we have to have from them. We have to know what they want. We have to know, how they want it to be set up.
Sure.
But we like to come in and do kind of everything for them so that they can just turn it on and forget about it. We've automated hours, so it can turn itself on and off depending on what they want. They can always change that, but it's very simple. They can have sales reports sent to them every night, every week, every month. Those can be customized. We do dashboards on a monthly basis. We do most golf courses. We do strongly request their round data by day and their golf cart sales by day, because it gives us much more, again, actionable data for them that they can decide how they want to use. What are the trends and what do they want to do to maximize their efficiency and their sales. So.
And that's obviously done, again, real time. That's something that gets uploaded through the dashboard or what have you. So you're getting that fairly quickly. Now, once you've done the initial setup and that, you're able to, if there are any issues with the platform or the app or what have you, and I'm not talking about individually, but with the system itself, you're actually able to, I know this is an old term, but dial in, as it were, from wherever you are. So you're able to actually get access through the back end, if you will, of their system to see if there are glitches or there's things that maybe weren't done correctly or has to be modified. You're able to do that in real time as well. So there's really very low risk of downtime. It's not like in the old days where if you had an issue, you had to wait for a technician to come or a programmer to come. You're able to do it in real time, right?
Yeah, out of all the boxes that we have deployed, there's data that we can get directly from the boxes on its physical health. But if there is anything that were to happen, we do work with contractors that are local in that area. I mean,
Sure.
depending on the machine, maybe just a standard vending machine repairman can fix the issue. If anything goes wrong, it's going to be a compressor or something like that. And these things tend to have, the machines we've been using tend to have a 7 to 10 year life, but honestly, they last longer than that. We've had one service call. So, I mean, and that was because, some compressor was making a really loud noise. So they're kind of tanks. And when we first started out, we thought that the hardware should be more fun and interactive. And this is something that we can do, if you want cool interactive screens and things like this. What we found out very quickly, because we started in arenas, was that people, they don't want that.
Yeah.
They're there for the fun. They're there to golf. They just want something fast and effective that isn't going to break. And so we put our AI into the platform, and there's no AI in the machines. They're dumb. And that's because that could cause opportunities for breakage, and we just don't need that. So that's kind of the approach that we've used.
Yeah, we want to make it as seamless as possible, and you want to be able to have it again, so that they're not dealing with, and I'm talking about the course or the facility, having to deal with a lot of issues. And their main concern is how much, sales are they going to get out of this, and how easily is it for their patrons to be, or their customers not to be able to access what they need to access. So it's really, number one, it has to be seamless, but also it has to be a quick turnaround, because if people have to wait, or they're dealing with issues and things like that all the time, then it's not a pleasurable experience. So it sounds like you guys have, obviously there's a lot of technology in behind on the back end of this. A lot of thought has gone into it. And now I know you have golf courses all over the place that you're into now, but are you typically in certain areas right now in the United States? Are you expanding outside of the US market? Where is it currently right now, and where you look?
Yeah. I mean, what's been interesting for us is once we start with one course in one area, it tends to spread, right? You get a little micro area. So we started in Tampa, and we've got, 6, almost 7 courses in that greater Tampa area now.
Sure.
So that was kind of our first hub. We're moving into, right now, like as we speak, we are active in Kentucky, Missouri, Colorado.
Wow.
And rapidly expanding to the East Coast too. So Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey are on deck. So those are kind of where we're at right now. We've only there's probably 3 states where we're still working with regulators to make sure that, they understand the technology and that sort of thing. But after we get to that point, then obviously we're open to expansion. We are actively working on California right now too, as far as some implementations. Those will probably happen late summer. So outside of the US, as it relates to golf, we haven't seen a big demand in golf in Europe unless it's a course that has a lot of tourists, to be honest, because they just don't drink as much while they're golfing.
Sure.
But we are having some discussions down in the Caribbean and Mexico. There are some great opportunities for some resorts down there where this would be a great fit. So we have not done those yet, but we are soon. In Canada, we're just finishing up with the Ministry of Finance that's their version of regulatory.
Right.
And then after that, we'll start expanding in Canada as well.
Yeah, by the way, I'm Canadian, so I know exactly what you have to deal with up there. But
it's a process. But I mean, I think, the support we've gotten and their collaboration has been excellent. So I think it's not it's just a when. You just have to go through
you have to go through all the red tape and all that stuff and that. So no, that's fantastic. So for those that are maybe interested in learning more from the course's perspective, and then just anybody in generally interested, is there a website they can go to and learn a little bit more about Zigit? What do they need to do?
Yeah. The easiest way is Zigit.app. So .app. That's our primary, web interface. info@zigit.app is always available if you want to ask any questions at all. And we'll put you in touch with the right person to answer the types of questions that you have.
And as far as availability for the app, you said it's available through Google Play. and also I'm assuming for iPhone devices as well. So it's in both, Android and obviously iPhone that's available.
Yep.
So
yeah, absolutely. And Google Pay, Apple Pay. I mean, pretty much all those options are in there too.
perfect. Well, that's Elsbeth. Thank you very much. I always learn something new from my guests, and I enjoyed our conversation the first time you came on the show, and I learned obviously a little bit more this time. And it's great to see that you guys are expanding and moving into even more markets. And I'm really happy that you're moving into Canada too. And
we're excited. The momentum is strong, and I think, especially with some of the management companies, we're starting to see the data pull through where they can start to see the value of kind of some of the insights we can provide, which I think is going to be the future. So,
well, and we only have golf about 5.5, 6 months in Canada, but we've got a lot of hockey up there, and you get into some of those big venues.
Hockey arenas. We started
serious.
Yeah, we started at American Airlines Center with the Stars, and honestly, the hockey fans love us.
Oh yeah.
They want to get in and get out while the puck is not on the ice,
right?
Because they can't mess around. So they'll come out and get a nice cold one. It's been hockey is great for us. So we're great for hockey. So.
Yeah, you'll do very well up in Canada, in that you might actually even do better than the golf and in the hockey arenas. But Elsbeth, thank you very much for coming back on again. You're always welcome to come back when you guys got some new and exciting things to share. And thank you for sharing it with the audience. I'm going to get you to hang tight for just a second as I get ready to wrap up here. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and special thanks to all of my guests, the guys on the Coaches Corner panel, John Hughes and Jim Endicott. Thank you very much for always bringing your best, and also to my good friend, golf fitness professional Bob Forman, for helping us learn about how to build power in your swing this season as you get ready to get out and tackle the golf course. And of course, my very special featured guest tonight, Elsbeth Hurry, the CEO and co-founder of Zigit. And you can go to zigit.app is how you can find out more information, and also info as well. But Elsbeth, thank you very, very much. And I appreciate you joining me tonight on Golf Talk Live. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. It's been so nice to connect face to face too.
Yeah, exactly. A little different this time, but
yeah.
But thank you. And I will see everybody next week. Everybody get out and watch the Masters tournament. It's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. And I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to be the champion at the Masters this weekend. But thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coaches Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.